The notification chimed on my phone just as I finished my morning coffee. Eden's message glowed on the screen. "Relax. I'll be back in a week. Paris is calling." I stared at the words, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, something sharper, something that tasted like revenge. My name is Jared Solis, and I've spent 15 years building a life with a woman who just texted me from Charles de Gaulle Airport like I was her personal assistant. The photo attached showed her beaming beside some guy I'd never seen before. Tall, dark hair, expensive jacket. The kind of man Eden always claimed she wasn't interested in. "Sure thing, honey," I muttered to my empty kitchen. "Enjoy the Eiffel Tower. I'll enjoy planning your farewell." See, here's what Eden didn't know about her boring logistics consultant husband. I spent 8 years in military intelligence before I started moving cargo containers around the world. I know how to plan operations, I know how to gather intelligence, and I know how to execute a mission without leaving fingerprints. My laptop was already open on the kitchen counter. Within minutes, I'd accessed our joint accounts, all of them. Eden had always been careless with passwords, using variations of her maiden name and birthday. The woman who prided herself on being an influencer couldn't even influence herself to practice basic security. Transfer, transfer, transfer. 50,000 from our main checking account to my personal business account. Another 30 from our vacation fund, the one we'd been building to visit Italy together. That trip wasn't happening now. 25,000 from our emergency savings, which was about to become my emergency fund. I left enough in the accounts to cover the mortgage and utilities for 2 months. I'm not a monster. I'm just a man who's tired of being treated like a doormat by a woman who thinks Paris is more important than our marriage. My phone buzzed. A text from Colby, our neighbor across the street. "Saw Eden leave with a suitcase. Everything okay?" Colby Varon was one of those people who defied easy categorization. Short auburn hair, sharp cheekbones, and a wardrobe that could go either way depending on the day. We'd become friends over the past year, bonding over our shared love of craft beer and our shared annoyance with Eden's increasingly self-absorbed behavior. "Come over," I typed back. "I need a witness." 15 minutes later, Colby was sitting at my kitchen table, watching me work on my laptop with the focused intensity of a surgeon. "You're really doing this," Colby said, not a question. "She's in Paris with another man," I replied, not looking up from the screen. "Posted it on her Instagram story before she even texted me. #blessed, #living my best life, #about to become a single woman again." Harsh, but probably overdue. I glanced up. Colby was nursing a beer, expression unreadable. "You don't seem surprised." "I've been watching this train wreck for months, Jared. Eden hasn't exactly been subtle about her wandering eye, or her wandering everything else." That stung, but I pushed the feeling aside. Emotions were a luxury I couldn't afford right now. I had work to do. "Help me with something," I said, pulling out my phone. "I need a photo that says, 'Having a great time without you.'" Colby raised an eyebrow. "What kind of photo?" "The kind that makes her wonder what she's missing." We spent the next hour staging what I privately called Operation New Life. Photos of Colby and me cooking dinner together. Colby teaching me to play guitar in the living room. Both of us laughing over some private joke on the back deck. The best shot was candid. Colby had made some sarcastic comment about Eden's decorating choices, and I genuinely cracked up. The camera caught us both in profile, relaxed and happy in a way I hadn't felt in months. I uploaded it to my barely used social media account with a simple caption. "Great company makes everything better." Then I sent it directly to Eden. Her response came within minutes. "What the hell is this?" I typed back, "Relax, you said you'd be back in a week. I'm just making sure the week goes by quickly." "Is that Colby? Are you having some kind of breakdown?" "No breakdown, just a breakthrough. By the way, you might want to check our bank account. I moved some things around." The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times. Then my phone rang. "Don't answer it," Colby advised. I declined the call and turned off my phone. "She'll figure it out soon enough." "Figure what out?" I opened a new browser tab and navigated to a legal services website I'd bookmarked weeks ago. That her husband isn't as stupid as she thinks he is. The divorce papers took me 2 hours to complete online. Maine was a no-fault state, which meant I didn't need to prove adultery or abandonment. I just needed to prove irreconcilable differences. The photos Eden had posted from Paris with her mysterious companion would help, but I had something better. I had her emails. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. See, Eden thought she was tech-savvy because she could edit Instagram posts and schedule tweets. but she'd been using our shared laptop for months, and she never bothered to log out of anything. Her Gmail account was a treasure trove of conversations with her Parisian friend Luca, conversations that went back 6 months and left very little to the imagination. "Listen to this," I told Colby, reading from the screen. "From Eden to Luca 3 weeks ago. Jared is so boring lately. All he talks about is work and bills. You make me feel alive again." Ouch! It gets better. From Luca to Eden. "Leave him. Come to Paris. I will show you how a real man treats a woman like you." Double ouch. And here's my personal favorite from Eden 2 days ago. "I'm going to tell him it's a work trip. He's so trusting, he'll never question it. By the time I get back, I'll know what I want to do about us." Colby winced. She really wrote that? Screenshots saved and backed up in 3 different locations. I closed the laptop. She wants to know what she wants to do about us? I'm helping her figure it out. My phone had been buzzing steadily for the past hour. Texts, missed calls, voicemails. I turned it back on and scrolled through Eden's increasingly frantic messages. "Call me back right now." "This isn't funny, Jared. You can't just move our money without talking to me." "I'm coming home tomorrow. We need to discuss this like adults." The last message had arrived 10 minutes ago. "I'm bringing Luca with me. We need to have a conversation." I showed the screen to Colby. She's bringing her boyfriend home to have a conversation about our marriage. The audacity is almost impressive. Almost. I stood up and stretched. Good thing I've got 24 hours to prepare for their visit. "What are you going to do?" I smiled, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. "I'm going to give them the conversation they're asking for, just not the one they're expecting." "Need help?" "Actually, yes. You know anyone with a video camera?" Colby grinned. "I know someone with several." As the sun set over our quiet suburban street, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the thrill of a mission about to begin. Eden thought she was coming home to negotiate the terms of her betrayal. Instead, she was walking into a trap that would make her Paris adventure look like a minor vacation mishap. I'd spent 15 years being the reliable husband, the steady provider, the man who never made waves. Tomorrow, Eden would discover what happened when you pushed a patient man too far. My phone buzzed with one final message from her. "Relax, we'll work this out." I typed back, "I'm relaxed. Are you?" Then I turned off my phone and got back to work. I had a homecoming to plan. Blake Morrison arrived at my house at 7 the next morning, carrying a duffel bag and wearing the kind of grin that meant trouble for someone. Blake and I had served together in Afghanistan, and he'd transitioned from military intelligence to private investigation work when we came home. If you needed information gathered or a situation documented, Blake was your man. "Heard you need some technical support," he said, setting his bag on my kitchen counter. "Eden and her boyfriend are flying in this afternoon. They want to have a conversation." "What kind of conversation?" I handed him a cup of coffee and the printed emails I'd prepared. "The kind where they explain why I should be grateful she's found someone who makes her happy." Blake read through the pages, whistling softly. She really put all this in writing. Eden's always been confident that rules don't apply to her. She got careless. "How careless are we talking?" I opened my laptop and showed him Eden's social media accounts. She posted 17 photos from Paris in the past 3 days. 12 of them include Luca. She tagged the restaurants, the hotel, even the wine they shared. Her followers are asking who the handsome stranger is, and she's been responding with heart eye emojis. She's documenting her own affair on Instagram. Gets better. She used our joint credit card for everything. The hotel room, the dinners, even a shopping trip where she bought him a watch. Blake laughed, the sound sharp in my quiet kitchen. "She's not just cheating, she's making you pay for the privilege." "Was making me pay. I canceled all the joint cards yesterday." "How'd she take that news?" "Haven't heard from her since her phone calls stopped going through. I'm guessing she figured it out when she tried to pay for breakfast this morning." Colby knocked on the back door and let themselves in, carrying a bag of pastries and looking more awake than anyone had a right to at 7 in the morning. "Morning, boys. Ready for the big show?" Blake looked between us. "Colby's in on this?" "Colby's been watching Eden's performance for months. They're my star witness." "And backup entertainment," Colby added, settling into a chair. "I've been looking forward to this conversation since Eden told me last month that Jared was holding her back from her true potential." "She said that?" "Among other things. She also mentioned that she deserved a more sophisticated partner, someone who understood her artistic vision." Blake snorted. "Her artistic vision? She takes selfies for a living." "Lifestyle influencer," I corrected. "There's apparently a difference." "Not anymore." Colby said with satisfaction. I checked her accounts this morning. She's lost about 3,000 followers since the Paris post started. Turns out her audience doesn't appreciate married influencers flaunting affairs. That was news to me. 3,000? And counting. The comments are getting brutal. Her sponsors are probably going to start asking questions soon. Blake was setting up equipment while we talked. Small cameras, audio recorders, tablets for monitoring. What's the plan for when they arrive? Simple. Let them make their pitch, record everything, then present them with some information they don't know I have. Such as? I pulled out a manila folder I'd prepared the night before. Such as the fact that Luca is married. Happily, according to his wife's Facebook page. She posted photos from their anniversary dinner 2 weeks ago. Colby's eyes widened. Eden doesn't know. Eden knows what Luca told her, which is that he's a successful art dealer who's been waiting his whole life to meet someone like her. What's he actually do? He works at a gallery. He doesn't own it, and his wife Margot is an actual artist, the kind who shows in real galleries, not the kind who poses with lattes and calls it content creation. Blake was grinning now. This keeps getting better. It gets better still. I called the hotel in Paris yesterday. Luca booked the room, but his credit card was declined. Guess who's been paying for their romantic getaway? Your joint account, which I closed yesterday morning. They're probably having a very awkward conversation with hotel management right about now. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Luca. We need to talk before Eden and I arrive. I showed the message to Blake and Colby. Looks like our French friend wants a private conversation. You going to give him one? Absolutely. I typed back. Sure. Coffee shop on Main Street. 1 hour. Blake started to object, but I held up a hand. I want to meet this guy, see what Eden thinks is such an upgrade. I'm coming with you, Colby said. Me too, Blake added. This whole thing smells like setup. An hour later, we were sitting in a corner booth at Murphy's Coffee, watching a nervous-looking man in an expensive jacket scan the room like he expected trouble. Luca was handsome in the way that looked good in photos, but seemed somehow smaller in person. His clothes were nice, but I could see the careful way he checked the prices on the menu. He spotted me, probably from Eden's photos, and approached our table with the kind of confidence that didn't quite reach his eyes. Jared, I am Luca. We should talk. Have a seat, I said, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. These are my friends, Colby and Blake. They're here for moral support. Luca glanced around nervously. Perhaps we could speak privately. I don't have any secrets from my friends. Do you? That hit home. Luca shifted in his seat, suddenly looking younger than his 30-something years. Listen, this situation, it is complicated. I bet it is. How's your wife, by the way? The color drained from his face. My wife? Margot, right? Saw her Facebook page. Beautiful woman, talented artist. How long have you two been married? You do not understand. I understand perfectly. You're a married man who convinced my wife to pay for a romantic vacation while your actual wife thinks you're on a business trip. Luca's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Eden, she did not tell you. Eden told me she was going to Paris for work. Turns out we were both getting creative with the truth. Blake leaned forward, his presence suddenly more intimidating. Here's what I don't understand, Luca. Why bring Eden back here? Why not just end it in Paris and go home to your wife? Eden, she wants to... She thinks we should... She thinks you should what? Colby prompted. She wants me to meet you, to explain that she has found love. Real love. I had to admire Eden's nerve. She was planning to parade her married boyfriend in front of me like some kind of prize. And what did you tell her? I told her, yes, of course. What else could I say? You could have told her the truth, Blake suggested. About being married, about using her credit card, about planning to go back to Paris and pretend this never happened. Luca's hands were shaking now. You do not understand. Eden, she is very intense. When she decides something, she does not listen to other opinions. Tell me about it, I said dryly. I've been married to her for 15 years. She thinks I'm going to ask you for a divorce. She thinks we are going to be together. And instead? Luca looked around the coffee shop like he was planning an escape route. Instead, I am going to tell her that this was a mistake, that I cannot leave my wife, that she should work things out with you. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. That's going to be a difficult conversation. Yes, this is why I wanted to speak with you first, to explain. To ask me to help you break up with my wife. To ask you to To be understanding when she is upset. Blake laughed, the sound sharp enough to make other customers look over. You want him to comfort Eden when you dump her? I know it sounds. It sounds like you're in over your head, I interrupted. And you want me to clean up your mess? Luca nodded eagerly. Exactly. You know Eden. You know how she can be. I did know how Eden could be. I knew she'd throw a tantrum that would make a toddler proud. I knew she'd blame everyone except herself. And I knew she'd expect me to be there to pick up the pieces when her fantasy fell apart. Here's the thing, Luca. I'm not going to be there to comfort Eden when you break her heart. You know why? Why? I smiled, the expression feeling sharp on my face. Because I'm divorcing her too. The silence that followed was beautiful. Luca stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. Colby was trying not to laugh. Blake was watching Luca's reaction with professional interest. You are... what? Divorcing her. Papers are already filed. She'll be served as soon as she sets foot in Maine. But she thinks a lot of things that aren't true, like thinking her husband is too stupid to notice when she's having an affair, like thinking her boyfriend is single, like thinking she can come home and negotiate the terms of her betrayal. I stood up, Blake and Colby following my lead. Good luck with that conversation, Luca. Something tells me it's not going to go the way either of you planned. We left him sitting there, staring into his untouched coffee like it might contain answers. Outside, Blake clapped me on the shoulder. That was beautiful. The look on his face when you said you were divorcing her, too. Almost makes me feel bad for Eden, Colby added. She's about to get dumped by 2 men in the same day. Don't feel too bad, I said, checking my watch. Their flight lands in 3 hours. We should get back and finish setting up. Think Luca will go through with it? I thought about the panicked look in his eyes, the way he'd kept checking his phone like he was expecting a rescue call. He's more scared of his wife finding out than he is of Eden's reaction. Yeah, he'll go through with it. And then? And then Eden comes home to find out that her boring husband isn't as boring as she thought. We drove back to my house in comfortable silence. I felt lighter than I had in months, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even realize was there. In a few hours, Eden would walk through my front door expecting to rearrange my life to suit her needs. Instead, she'd discover that her life was the one being rearranged. I couldn't wait to see her face. Eden's key turned in the front door at exactly 4:30. I heard her voice in the entryway, bright and false in the way it got when she was nervous. Jared, we're home. We, like Luca, was part of the family now. I was sitting in the living room with Colby, both of us nursing beers and watching a baseball game. Blake was upstairs in the guest bedroom, monitoring the cameras he'd positioned throughout the main floor. We looked relaxed, domestic, like we'd been spending quiet afternoons together for years. In here, I called back. Eden appeared in the doorway, and I had to admit she looked good. Paris had agreed with her. There was color in her cheeks and a confidence in her posture that I hadn't seen in months. She was wearing a new dress, something expensive and French-looking, and her hair was styled differently. The woman who'd left for a work trip had been replaced by someone who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Behind her, Luca looked like he wanted to disappear into the wallpaper. Hi, Eden said, her voice uncertain as she took in the scene. I didn't know Colby was here. Colby's been keeping me company while you were away, I said, not getting up. We've been having a great time, haven't we, Colby? The best, Colby agreed, raising their beer in a mock toast. Jared's been teaching me to cook. Turns out he's full of surprises. Eden's smile flickered. That's nice. Jared, we need to talk. Sure, have a seat. I gestured to the chairs across from the couch. Both of you. Luca shot me a look that might have been pleading, but I ignored it. He'd made his choice when he got on that plane with my wife. Now he could live with the consequences. They settled into the chairs, Eden perched on the edge like she was ready to spring into action, Luca slumped back like he was bracing for impact. So, I said, muting the television. How was Paris? It was wonderful, Eden said, her voice gaining strength. Transformative, really. It gave me perspective on what I want from life. I bet it did. Learn anything interesting? I learned that I've been settling, that I deserve more than... She gestured around the room. More than this. More than our home, our marriage, our life together. More than a husband who thinks dinner and television is the height of romance. Colby made a soft sound that might have been amusement. Eden shot them a sharp look. Is something funny? Just thinking about all those romantic dinners Jared cooked for you that you were too busy to eat. All those trips he planned that you canceled for work. All those times he tried to do something special and you told him you were too tired. Eden's cheeks flushed. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? I live across the street, Eden. I see everything. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Eden looked between Colby and me, something sharp and suspicious entering her expression. What exactly have you two been discussing? Oh, you know, this and that. Your work schedule, your travel habits, your interesting choice of hashtags. Eden went very still. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and opened her Instagram account. Hashtag living my best life. Hashtag blessed. Hashtag Parisian romance. That last one was particularly creative. You were stalking my social media? Stalking? Eden, you posted 17 photos in 3 days. You tagged locations, restaurants, even the wine you were drinking. If you wanted privacy, you might have considered making your account private. Luca shifted in his chair, looking like he wanted to speak, but Eden held up a hand to silence him. Fine. Yes, I was with Luca. Yes, we've developed feelings for each other. But that doesn't change what I came here to say. Which is? She took a deep breath, straightening her shoulders like she was preparing for battle. I want a divorce, Jared. I want to start over with someone who appreciates me. The silence that followed was perfect. I let it stretch until Eden started to fidget. Okay, I said finally. Okay? Okay, you can have a divorce. She blinked, clearly thrown by my easy agreement. Just like that? Just like that. In fact, I've already started the process. I reached into the folder beside my chair and pulled out the papers I'd had served that morning. Consider yourself officially notified. Eden stared at the documents like they might bite her. You filed for divorce? Yesterday. Irreconcilable differences. Should be pretty straightforward. But I was going to... You were going to what? Come home and negotiate? Explain why I should be grateful that you found someone better? Her mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. Beside her, Luca was studying his hands like they contained the secrets of the universe. Actually, I continued, since we're all here, maybe Luca should tell you about the conversation we had this morning. Eden turned to look at her boyfriend, confusion clear on her face. What conversation? Luca's face had gone pale. Eden, we should talk privately. No, I said firmly. We should talk right here, right now, all of us. Isn't that what you wanted, Eden? An honest conversation about what everyone wants? Yes, but... Great. Luca, why don't you start? Tell Eden what you told me about your wife. The word hit the room like a physical blow. Eden went rigid, her eyes fixed on Luca's face. Your what? Eden, I can explain. Your wife? Her voice was rising, the careful composure cracking. You're married. It is complicated. Complicated. Eden was on her feet now, pacing behind her chair. You told me you were single. You told me you'd been waiting your whole life to meet someone like me. I was going to tell you? When? After I divorced my husband? After I gave up my life here? Luca finally looked up, desperation clear in his eyes. My marriage. It is not happy. Margot and I, we are like strangers. But divorce, it is expensive and complicated and easier to just have affairs while your wife thinks you're on business trips. The words came from Colby, who was watching the scene unfold with obvious fascination. Eden spun around to face them. How do you know about his business trips? Because Jared did some research. Amazing what you can find on social media when you know where to look. I pulled out my tablet and opened the photos I'd saved. Margot's Facebook page. She's quite the photographer. Look, here's one from 2 weeks ago. Her anniversary dinner with her loving husband. Eden stared at the screen, her face cycling through emotions too quickly to track. That's the day before you messaged me about Paris. What a coincidence, I said dryly. You celebrated your anniversary with your wife and then invited me on a romantic vacation. Luca was shrinking into his chair. Eden, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you're a liar? That you used me? That you made me pay for a hotel room while your wife was at home thinking you were working? You made her pay? Colby asked with interest. His credit card was declined, I explained. Apparently Margot keeps a closer eye on their finances than Eden does on ours. Did on ours. Eden turned to look at me, something dangerous in her expression. You closed our accounts. I move my money to my accounts. There's a difference. Your money? I contribute to this household. With what? Your influencer income? Eden, you made $1,200 last month. Our mortgage is $3,000. I'm building a brand. You're building a fantasy, and apparently so is Luca. She whirled back to face her boyfriend, who was now openly cringing. Is any of it true? Anything you told me? I do care for you. That's not what I asked. Luca looked around the room like he was searching for an escape route. The gallery, I do work there, but I do not own it. And my apartment, it is small, and I share it with Margot. And the debts, they are significant. So you thought you'd find a rich American woman to solve your problems. It was not like that. What was it like? The silence stretched until I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. It was like a vacation, he said finally. A beautiful vacation from my real life. The sound Eden made was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. She sank back into her chair, staring at Luca like she was seeing him for the first time. A vacation? Eden, I was a vacation to you. You are a wonderful woman, but not wonderful enough to leave your wife for. Not wonderful enough to be honest with. Luca didn't answer, which was answer enough. Eden sat in silence for a long moment, her hands clenched in her lap. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears and something that might have been rage. Get out. Eden, get out of my house. Get out of my life. Go home to your wife and your debts and your small apartment, and don't ever contact me again. Luca stood up slowly, looking like a man walking to his execution. How will I get to the airport? Call a cab. Walk. I don't care. He looked at me, perhaps hoping for some kind of intervention, but I just shrugged. You heard the lady. After he left, the house felt different. Smaller somehow, but also cleaner. Eden sat motionless in her chair, staring at the floor. Well, Colby said finally, that was educational. Eden looked up, her face streaked with tears, but her voice steady. I suppose you're enjoying this? Actually, no. I don't enjoy watching people get hurt, even when they've hurt others. But you're not surprised. No, Colby said gently. I'm not surprised. Eden turned to me. And you? Are you enjoying this? I considered the question seriously. I'm not enjoying seeing you hurt, but I'm not sorry you found out the truth. The truth? She laughed, the sound bitter. Which truth? That my boyfriend was using me? That my husband was spying on me? That my life is falling apart? The truth that actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like they're disposable and expect them to wait around while you figure out what you want. Is that what I did to you? What do you think? She was quiet for a long time, tears sliding down her cheeks. When she spoke again, her voice was small. I thought I was unhappy. I thought you were the reason. And now? Now I don't know what I think. I felt something that might have been sympathy, but I pushed it aside. This was the moment Eden always expected, the moment when I would comfort her, tell her everything would be okay, help her pick up the pieces of the mess she'd made. Instead, I stood up and handed her the divorce papers. You have 30 days to respond to these. I'd recommend getting a lawyer. She stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. Jared, wait. Maybe we can what? Work it out? Go to counseling? Pretend this never happened? Maybe. If we both want to try? I don't want to try, Eden. I'm done trying. The finality in my voice seemed to hit her like a physical blow. She looked around the room, at the furniture we'd picked out together, the photos on the walls, the life we'd built over 15 years. This is really it? This is really it. She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Can I stay here tonight? I don't have anywhere else to go. I looked at Colby, who gave me a slight nod. Tonight. But tomorrow you need to make other arrangements. Okay. She stood up, clutching the divorce papers to her chest. Okay. She walked toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back. For what it's worth, I am sorry. About the lying, about the money, about all of it. I know you are. But it doesn't change anything. No, it doesn't. After she disappeared upstairs, Colby and I sat in silence, listening to the sound of her footsteps overhead. Think she means it? Colby asked. The apology? I think she means it right now, but Eden's always been good at meaning things in the moment. And tomorrow? I finished my beer and set the empty bottle on the coffee table. Tomorrow she'll wake up and remember that none of this was supposed to be her fault. Blake appeared in the doorway, grinning and carrying his equipment bag. Got everything on camera. That was better than cable television. How much of it? All of it. From the moment she walked in to the moment she went upstairs. Audio's crystal clear, too. Good. I have a feeling I'm going to need it. As the sun set outside my living room windows, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not happiness, exactly, but the calm that comes from finally stopping a fight you never wanted to have in the first place. Eden was upstairs, probably planning her next move, figuring out how to salvage her reputation and her finances. Tomorrow she'd start the process of rebuilding her life without me, and I'd start the process of rebuilding mine without her. It was going to be interesting. I woke up the next morning to the sound of Eden's voice drifting up from the kitchen, animated and urgent in a way that meant she was on the phone with someone she considered important. Probably her mother, or her lawyer friend Rena, or maybe one of her influencer contacts. Someone who would tell her what she wanted to hear about how none of this was really her fault. I took my time getting dressed, listening to the rhythm of her conversation without trying to make out the words. Blake had left the night before, taking his equipment with him, but the small recording device he'd given me was still in my nightstand drawer, just in case. When I finally made it downstairs, Eden was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, her phone pressed to her ear, and a cup of coffee growing cold beside her elbow. She looked up when I entered, holding up one finger in a just-a-minute gesture that used to be charming and now just seemed presumptuous. "I have to go," she said into the phone. "I'll call you back later." She hung up and turned to face me with the kind of bright, determined smile that meant she'd spent the night planning something. "Good morning. I made coffee." "Thanks." I poured myself a cup and leaned against the counter, maintaining distance. "Sleep okay?" "As well as could be expected." She gestured to her laptop. "I've been doing some research. About the divorce. About our options. About how we might be able to work this out." "Eden, just hear me out. I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But 15 years is a long time to throw away over one bad decision." "One bad decision?" Her cheeks flushed. "Okay, several bad decisions. But people make mistakes, Jared. People get confused and do stupid things and then figure out what really matters." I sipped my coffee, studying her face. She looked earnest, hopeful, like she genuinely believed that the right combination of words could undo the past 6 months. "What did your lawyer friend tell you?" "Rena thinks we should try mediation before we go through with the divorce. She says couples counseling might help us work through." "Rena thinks you should try to talk me out of divorcing you because she knows you can't afford to split our assets right now." Eden's smile faltered. That's cynical. It's realistic. How much money do you have in your personal account, Eden?" "That's not the point." "How much?" She looked down at her laptop screen. "Not much, but I have income streams and my follower count is growing and—" "Your follower count dropped by 5,000 yesterday." Her head snapped up. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been watching your accounts. The Paris photos didn't go over well with your audience." "It's temporary. People will get over it." "Will they?" "Because the comments I saw were pretty harsh. Lots of questions about who the mystery man was, lots of criticism about flaunting an affair while married." Eden's jaw tightened. "I wasn't flaunting anything. I was sharing my life." "You were sharing your affair. There's a difference." She closed her laptop with more force than necessary. "Fine. Maybe I made some mistakes with social media too. But that doesn't mean we can't fix this." "We can't fix this because there is no we anymore, Eden. You made that choice when you got on a plane to Paris with another man." "I made that choice because I was unhappy, because I felt trapped and ignored and taken for granted." "So you decided to cheat instead of talking to me about it." "I tried to talk to you. I tried to tell you that I needed more excitement, more romance, more what? More expensive dinners? More trips to places we couldn't afford? More attention from men who weren't your husband?" She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and back. "You don't understand. You never understood what it was like to be married to someone who was perfectly content with ordinary. And you never understood what it was like to be married to someone who was never content with anything?" The words hung in the air between us, sharp and final. Eden stopped pacing, her shoulders sagging. "So that's it? 15 years? And that's it? 15 years and that's it." She was quiet for a long moment, staring out the kitchen window at Colby's house across the street. "Are you seeing them? Colby?" "We're friends." "That's not what I asked." I considered how to answer that. Colby and I had grown closer over the past few months, but it wasn't romantic. It was something else, a connection based on mutual respect and shared humor and the simple pleasure of being around someone who didn't constantly find fault with my choices. "No, I'm not seeing Colby. But even if I were, it wouldn't be any of your business anymore." "It would be if you were cheating on me." "I'm not cheating on you. I'm divorcing you. There's a difference." Eden turned back to face me, something desperate in her expression. "Jared, please. Can't we at least try? Can't we go to counseling and see if we can work through this?" "Why?" "Because I love you." The words should have meant something. 6 months ago, they would have meant everything. Now they just sounded hollow, like lines from a play she was performing for an audience of one. "No, you don't. Yes, I do. I know I made mistakes, but you love the idea of not having to start over. You love the security of our house and our shared finances and the life we built together, but you don't love me. That's not true. When's the last time you asked me about my work? She blinked, thrown by the change of subject. What? My work. My job. The thing I do 40 hours a week to pay for this house and your lifestyle and your trips to Paris. When's the last time you asked me about it? We don't always have to talk about work. When's the last time you asked me how I was feeling? Not how I was feeling about something you wanted, but just how I was feeling in general. Jared, when's the last time you suggested we do something I wanted to do, instead of something you wanted me to want to do? She opened her mouth, then closed it, no answer coming. You don't love me, Eden. You love having a husband. You love having someone to split the bills with, someone to blame when you're unhappy, someone to come home to when your adventures don't work out the way you planned. Tears were sliding down her cheeks now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no desire to comfort her. Just a tired kind of relief that we were finally being honest. I can change, she said quietly. I can be better. I don't want you to change. I want you to be happy. Just not with me. My phone buzzed with a text from Colby. Coffee's ready when you need an escape route. I showed Eden the message. I'm going across the street for a while. When I come back, I'd like you to be gone. Gone where? I don't have anywhere to go. You have friends. You have family. You have a mother who thinks you can do no wrong and will probably let you stay with her while you figure things out. My mother lives in Florida. Then I guess you're taking a trip to Florida. She stared at me like I was a stranger, which I suppose I was. The man she'd married would have offered to help her find a place to stay, would have felt guilty about making her leave, would have bent over backward to make her transition as comfortable as possible. But that man had died somewhere between her first lie about working late and her last Instagram post from Paris. The divorce papers give you 30 days to respond, I said, heading for the door. I'd recommend using them wisely. I left her sitting at our kitchen table, surrounded by the remnants of the life she'd decided wasn't good enough for her. It should have felt cruel. Instead, it felt like the first honest thing I'd done in months. Colby's front door was unlocked, as usual. I found them in the kitchen, scrambling eggs and humming something that might have been jazz. How'd it go? About as well as expected. She wants to try counseling. Of course she does. Colby slid a plate of eggs across the counter to me. What did you tell her? That it's too late for counseling. Is it? I considered the question while I ate. Yeah, it is. You can't counsel your way out of fundamental incompatibility. Fundamental incompatibility? She needs constant excitement and validation and drama. I need peace and stability and honesty. Those aren't problems you solve with better communication. Colby nodded, understanding. Some people are just wrong for each other. Exactly. Took me 15 years to figure that out. We ate in comfortable silence, watching the morning sun stream through Colby's kitchen windows. Across the street, I could see Eden moving around in my house, probably packing or making phone calls or both. What happens now? Colby asked. Now she finds somewhere else to live, and I figure out what my life looks like without her. Any ideas? I looked around Colby's kitchen, warm and cluttered and lived in a way that felt more like home than my own house had in years. A few, I said, but I'm in no hurry to figure it out. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from an unknown number. This is Rena Feldman, Eden's attorney. We need to discuss your divorce filing. I showed the message to Colby, who read it and laughed. Eden works fast. Eden panics fast, there's a difference. I typed back, have your office call my attorney to schedule a meeting. The response came immediately. What attorney? I grinned and typed, the one I'm about to hire. Then I turned off my phone and finished my eggs. Eden wanted to make this complicated, but it didn't have to be. We had no children, no shared business interests, no complicated assets beyond the house and our retirement accounts. In a no-fault state like Maine, it should be straightforward. Of course, straightforward had never been Eden's style, but then again, neither was giving up without a fight, and that was about to become her problem, not mine. 3 days later, I was sitting in the office of Margaret Chen, the divorce attorney Blake had recommended. Her office was everything Eden would have hated. Practical furniture, neutral colors, no Instagram-worthy details. Just a competent professional who specialized in helping people untangle their lives with minimum drama. Your case is fairly straightforward, Margaret was saying, reviewing the documents I'd brought. No children, no joint business interests, clear documentation of separate assets. The only complication is the house. How so? You bought it together. Both names are on the deed, but you've been making the mortgage payments from your income while she contributed. What exactly? Theoretically, household management and her influencer income. In practice, not much. Margaret made a note. Her attorney is going to argue that her domestic contributions and potential future earnings should be factored into the settlement. Her potential future earnings? She lost 8,000 followers in the past week. Nevertheless, Rena Feldman is known for creative arguments. She'll probably claim that your actions, closing joint accounts, filing for divorce while Eden was out of town, constitute financial abuse. I laughed, the sound sharp in the quiet office. Financial abuse? I moved my money to my own accounts after she spent $5,000 on a vacation with her boyfriend. Can you prove that? I pulled out the folder I'd prepared. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, Instagram posts with timestamps and locations, plus email correspondence between Eden and her boyfriend discussing the trip. Margaret flipped through the documents, her expression growing more interested. How did you obtain these emails? They were on our shared laptop. She never logged out of her accounts. And you have screenshots? Screenshots, printed copies, and digital backups in 3 locations. Mr. Solis, did you hire a private investigator? I am a private investigator. Was, anyway. Military intelligence, then corporate logistics. I know how to document things properly. Margaret sat back in her chair, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. This is going to be easier than I thought. My phone rang, Eden's number. I declined the call. She's been trying to reach me all morning, I explained. Probably wants to discuss settlement terms. Don't discuss anything without me present. In fact, I'd recommend limiting contact to essential communications only. The phone rang again. This time it was Colby. Sorry, I should take this. Jared? Colby's voice was tight with something that might have been amusement or concern. You need to see Eden's latest Instagram post. What about it? She's trying to control the narrative. Posted a long caption about taking time to work on her marriage and asking for privacy during this difficult time. I put the call on speaker so Margaret could hear. What exactly did she say? Hang on, I'll read it. Sometimes life forces us to examine what really matters. I'm taking a break from social media to focus on my family and work through some personal challenges. Thank you for your support, and please respect our privacy during this time. Love and light, Eden. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Interesting strategy. There's more, Colby continued. She's getting a lot of supportive comments from people who don't know about the divorce filing. They think you two are working things out. Are there photos? 1. Her sitting in what looks like a hotel room, looking sad and thoughtful. Very artistic lighting. I thanked Colby and hung up, then looked at Margaret. Is this going to be a problem? Depends. Is she planning to claim that you're the one who broke up the marriage? Probably. Eden's never been one to accept responsibility when there's someone else to blame. My phone buzzed with a text from Eden. We need to talk. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown. Room 412. I showed the message to Margaret, who shook her head. Don't go alone, if you go at all. I'm not going. Whatever she wants to say, she can say it through her attorney. But even as I said it, I knew Eden wouldn't give up that easily. She was probably crafting her next move right now, figuring out how to spin this situation to her advantage. I was right. That afternoon, Colby called with an update. She's at Murphy's Coffee, holding court with anyone who'll listen. Apparently, you're having a midlife crisis, and she's the victim of your emotional instability. Anyone believe it? A few people, the ones who don't know you very well. But most folks are asking why she's talking to strangers about her marriage instead of talking to her husband. Good point. Also, she tried to pay for her coffee with a credit card that was declined. Had to ask the barista if she could Venmo them instead. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Eden had never been good with money, had never had to think about budgets or consequences. She was probably genuinely shocked to discover that her access to funds had been limited. But sympathy wasn't the same as responsibility. She was an adult who'd made adult choices. Now she could deal with adult consequences. That evening, I was at home working on my laptop when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a young man in a cheap suit holding an envelope. Process server. I opened the door, accepted the papers, and read them while the server waited for confirmation. Rena Feldman, attorney for petitioner Eden Varick Solis, the header read. Below that, a motion for temporary spousal support and exclusive use of the marital home. You've been served, the young man said unnecessarily. Thanks. After he left, I called Margaret. She's asking for spousal support and wants me out of the house, I told her. On what grounds? Let me read this. Petitioner has been financially dependent on respondent throughout the marriage and requires temporary support to maintain her standard of living while pursuing employment opportunities. Additionally, respondent's recent erratic behavior and financial manipulation have created an unsafe living environment for petitioner. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Unsafe living environment? Apparently, I'm emotionally unstable and potentially dangerous. Based on what evidence? Based on the fact that I filed for divorce and moved my money to my own accounts. This is going to backfire on her. Judges don't like baseless accusations of abuse, especially when the accuser is the one who was having an affair. So what do? We respond with our own motion for exclusive use of the house based on your ability to pay the mortgage and for attorney's fees based on her frivolous claims. Can we do that? Oh, yes. And we're going to include all those emails and credit card statements as exhibits. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house and tried to imagine what Eden was thinking. Did she really believe that claiming I was dangerous would help her case? Did she think a judge would ignore her affair and her financial irresponsibility because she'd managed to paint herself as a victim? Or was this just desperation? A woman who'd never had to face real consequences for her actions, trying anything that might work. My phone rang. This time it was Blake. Heard Eden's trying to get you kicked out of your own house. News travels fast. Small town. Also, she's been calling around, trying to find someone who'll say you have anger management issues. Any takers? Not so far. Most people think she's lost her mind. Most people? Well, her mother called me. Apparently Eden told her you threatened her. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I never threatened her. I know that. You know that. But her mother doesn't know that, and she's worried enough to get involved. How involved? She's flying up from Florida tomorrow, planning to stay with Eden and help her through this difficult time. I groaned. Eden's mother, Patricia, was a force of nature who believed her daughter could do no wrong, and that every problem in Eden's life was someone else's fault. Having her involved was going to make everything more complicated. This keeps getting better. There's more. Patricia apparently has some money saved up, and she's talking about hiring Eden a better lawyer. Better than Rena? Different, anyway. Someone who specializes in high-conflict divorces. I thanked Blake and hung up, then poured myself a drink and sat on my back deck, watching the sunset over my quiet neighborhood. Across the street, Colby's house was lit up and welcoming. Down the block, families were having dinner, kids were playing in yards, normal people were living normal lives. Tomorrow, Eden's mother would arrive with her checkbook and her righteous indignation, ready to wage war on behalf of her precious daughter. Eden would have reinforcements, financial backing, and a new narrative about being the victim of an abusive husband. But I had something better. I had the truth, documented and backed up in multiple locations. I had witnesses who'd seen Eden's behavior over the past few months, and I had a lawyer who specialized in cutting through nonsense to get to the facts. Most importantly, I had something Eden had never learned to value. Patience. She wanted to make this a war? Fine. But wars weren't won by the loudest voice or the most dramatic story. They were won by the side with better strategy and stronger resolve, and I'd been planning this battle a lot longer than she realized. Patricia Varick arrived on a Thursday morning like a hurricane in a designer handbag. I watched from my kitchen window as she climbed out of a taxi in front of Colby's house, clearly having gotten the wrong address, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the early flight from Florida. Even from across the street, I could see the determined set of her shoulders that meant someone was about to get a piece of her mind. Colby appeared on their front porch, probably to redirect Patricia to the correct house, but I could see the conversation escalating quickly. Patricia was gesturing emphatically, her voice carrying across the quiet street even though I couldn't make out the words. My phone rang. Colby. Your mother-in-law is here, and she's got some opinions about your character. What kind of opinions? The kind that involve words like manipulative and controlling and probably dangerous. She wanted to know if I'd seen any signs of violent behavior. What did you tell her? That the only violent thing you'd ever done was overcook a steak on the grill last month? Despite everything, I laughed. How'd she take that? About as well as you'd expect. She's heading your way now, and she looks ready for battle. I hung up and watched Patricia march across the street, her heels clicking on the pavement with military precision. She didn't knock, just used what I assumed was Eden's key to let herself into what she probably still thought of as her daughter's house. Jared? Her voice echoed from the entryway, sharp and demanding. We need to talk. I found her in the living room, standing with her arms crossed and her mouth set in a thin line. Patricia had always been an attractive woman, and at 65 she still carried herself like someone accustomed to getting her way. Today, though, there was something desperate in her eyes that suggested Eden's version of events had shaken her. Hello, Patricia. How was your flight? Don't you dare act casual with me. I know what you've done to my daughter. I settled into my usual chair, keeping my voice calm. What exactly do you think I've done? You've financially abused her, emotionally manipulated her, and now you're trying to destroy her reputation to cover up your own failures as a husband. Is that what Eden told you? Eden told me enough. That you closed all her accounts without warning, that you filed for divorce while she was out of town, that you've been turning her friends against her. I pulled out my phone and opened Eden's Instagram account, turning the screen so Patricia could see it. Did she mention why she was out of town? Patricia glanced at the photos, her expression flickering with something that might have been uncertainty. She said it was a work trip. Look at the photos, Patricia. Look at the captions. Look at the man in every single picture. She took the phone reluctantly, scrolling through Eden's Paris posts with growing confusion. Who is this person? His name is Luca. He's married, he lives in Paris, and Eden spent $5,000 of our money taking him on a romantic vacation. That's not possible. Eden wouldn't. Eden did. I have the credit card statements, the hotel receipts, and the emails between them planning the trip. Patricia sank onto the couch, still staring at the phone. But she said you were having problems. She said you were distant and cold, and that she felt trapped in the marriage. We were having problems. But instead of talking to me about them, she decided to have an affair. An affair. Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. An affair that she documented on social media and paid for with our joint credit card. That's why I moved the money, Patricia. Not to abuse her financially, but to stop her from spending our savings on her boyfriend. I let that sink in while Patricia continued scrolling through the photos. Her face was cycling through emotions, shock, disappointment, anger, and something that looked like grief. She told me you threatened her. I never threatened her. I told her she had 30 days to respond to the divorce papers and that she needed to find somewhere else to live. That's not a threat. That's a consequence. Patricia looked up from the phone, her eyes bright with tears. 15 years of marriage. And this is how it ends? This is how Eden chose to end it. But surely you could work things out? Go to counseling? Try to rebuild? Patricia, your daughter spent 6 months lying to me, cheating on me, and spending our money on another man. When I found out, she didn't apologize or ask for forgiveness. She brought him home to meet me and expected me to be understanding about her need to explore other options. She brought him here? Sat right where you're sitting and explained that she deserved more excitement than I could provide. Patricia was quiet for a long moment, staring at Eden's photos like they might rearrange themselves into something less damning. She's my daughter, she said finally. I know. I have to support her. I understand. But I can't support this. She handed my phone back, her hands shaking slightly. I raised her better than this. You raised her to believe she was special. That's not the same thing. Patricia's laugh was bitter. Special. Yes, I suppose I did. I wanted her to have confidence, to believe she deserved good things. I never thought she'd interpret that as permission to take whatever she wanted. What will you tell her? I don't know. What would you tell her if you were me? I considered the question. I'd tell her that actions have consequences, and that being sorry after you get caught isn't the same as being sorry for what you did. And then? And then I'd help her figure out how to rebuild her life without expecting other people to fix the mess she made. Patricia nodded slowly, something resolute settling in her expression. You're right. She needs to face this herself. What about the lawyer? Blake heard you were planning to hire her better representation. I was, but that was before I saw... She gestured at my phone. Before I understood what really happened. So you won't be funding her legal battle? I'll help her get back on her feet, find a place to live, maybe some job training, but I won't help her fight a divorce she brought on herself. I felt a surge of respect for Patricia. It couldn't be easy to admit that your child had made such a fundamental mistake, especially when that child was asking you to choose sides. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Eden isn't going to take this well. As if summoned by her mother's words, Eden's key turned in the front door. She appeared in the living room doorway, looking harried and hopeful in equal measure. Mom, I'm so glad you're here. Did you talk to him? Did you explain? She stopped, taking in her mother's expression and my calm demeanor. What's wrong? Sit down, Eden. Mom, what's going on? I said sit down. Eden perched on the edge of the chair she'd occupied 3 days earlier, her eyes darting between Patricia and me like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. I've seen the photos, Patricia said without preamble. Eden went very still. What photos? The Paris photos. The ones with your boyfriend. He's not my... It's not what it looks like. It looks like you spent $5,000 taking a married man on a romantic vacation while your husband was at home thinking you were working. Eden's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. It looks like you lied to me, to Jared, and to yourself about what you were doing and why you were doing it. Mom, you don't understand? I understand perfectly. You were unhappy in your marriage, so instead of trying to fix it or ending it honestly, you decided to have an affair. It wasn't an affair. It was complicated. Patricia's voice was sharp with disappointment. It was selfish, and dishonest, and cruel. Eden turned to me, desperation clear in her voice. Jared, tell her. Tell her about how distant you've been, how you never wanted to do anything or go anywhere or... Eden, stop! The words came out harder than I'd intended, cutting through her building hysteria like a blade. Just stop. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming me for your choices. Stop expecting other people to fix the mess you made. But I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of not having to face the consequences of what you've done, but that's not the same thing. She looked at her mother, tears streaming down her face. Mom, please, help me fix this. Patricia's voice was gentle but firm. I can't fix this, sweetheart. Nobody can fix this except you. What does that mean? It means you sign the divorce papers, you find a job, you get your own apartment, and you learn to live with the choices you made. You're taking his side? I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm telling you the truth. Eden stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and back. This is insane. 3 days ago, you were ready to hire me a lawyer and fight this. What changed? I learned the facts. The facts according to him. The facts according to your own Instagram account. That stopped Eden cold. She stared at her mother like Patricia had slapped her. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Eden looked around the room, at the furniture, the photos, the life she was losing, and something seemed to break inside her. The tears stopped, replaced by something harder and more desperate. Fine. If that's how you want it, fine. But don't expect me to make this easy. She turned to me, her voice cold with fury. You think you've won? You think you can humiliate me and destroy my life and just walk away? I think I can divorce my cheating wife and move on with my life, yes. We'll see about that. She stormed toward the door, then stopped and turned back. This isn't over, Jared. Not even close. After she left, Patricia and I sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, she spoke. She's going to make this as difficult as possible. I know. She's going to try to hurt you however she can. I know that too. Patricia stood up, gathering her purse and her dignity. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, about all of it. You don't have anything to apologize for. I raised a daughter who thinks the world owes her whatever she wants. That's something to apologize for. After Patricia left, I sat alone in my living room, listening to the quiet sounds of my neighborhood settling into evening. Across the street, Colby's house glowed with warm light. Down the block, families were having dinner, helping with homework, living the kind of ordinary life Eden had always found so suffocating. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. Rena Feldman called. Eden wants to discuss settlement terms. I typed back, what kind of terms? The kind that involve her keeping the house and half your retirement account in exchange for not pursuing her claims of emotional abuse. I laughed out loud, the sound echoing in my empty house. Eden was still playing games, still trying to negotiate from a position of weakness like she held all the cards. Tell her no, I typed. We'll see her in court. Margaret's response came quickly. Are you sure? Court can be expensive and unpredictable. I'm sure. Some things are worth fighting for. I turned off my phone and poured myself a drink, then stepped onto my back deck to watch the stars come out. Tomorrow, Eden would probably try something new, maybe another social media campaign, maybe an attempt to turn our mutual friends against me, maybe just pure spite disguised as legal strategy. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Not Eden's husband, not the boring guy who paid the bills while she chased her dreams, not the obstacle standing between her and her true potential. Just Jared Solis, a man who'd finally learned the difference between being patient and being a fool. The divorce would be final in 60 days. Eden could spend that time plotting revenge or learning to accept reality. Either way, she'd be doing it without me, and that felt like victory enough.